I think we should move on to our second semi-final. I hope there is enough energy over here and everybody's excited. And the topic, it's also got to do with film. The Central Board of Film Certification should only have the power to place age labels on movies rather than have the power to explicitly ban or censor parts of the movie. Two of our quarterfinal winners. There's Leisha Dogra from RIMS International School and Kaamya Karthikeyan, Navy Children's School. And Leisha is for the subject and Kaamya is against the motion.
So let me start off with a famous quote by John Linton. "Give me the liberty to know, to utter, and to argue freely according to conscience above all liberties." Unquote. The film industry is the most influential industry in today's society. Every single person watches movies, from children to adults to teenagers to senior citizens. What the audience watches is based upon their choice. What the directors direct is again based upon their choice. The keyword here, as you can see, is choice. Everyone has fundamental rights when it comes to living in a democracy. Freedom of expression, freedom of choice, and freedom of thought. While viewer discretion in movies is there and is advised, outright banning movies goes against the fundamental rights of the people. Let's take the Da Vinci Code for example. The movie was banned because of its offensiveness towards Christianity and was highly frowned upon by Catholic leaders. When such movies are banned because of hurt religions and political sentiments, it makes the world devoid of critics and an unsafe environment to publicize ideas. Movies, let's just remember, movies are a source of entertainment. Social media, on the other hand, not so much. Social media is a place where you can freely put anything, like freedom of speech, like I said. And over there is more, just ban social media then, if you're going to ban movies. Because why? Because movies are for entertainment. That is what the audience wants to watch. The Da Vinci Code was there because of its demand. It was a book before it was a movie. Banning movies doesn't only sugarcoat reality, but it also shields people from the harsh truths of the world. For example, Black Friday. It's a movie based upon the Bombay bomb blast, but was halted due to the sensitivity of the issue. And like I said, while viewer discretion is advised, outright banning the movie and sugarcoating the truth and hiding the harsh reality of what people went through is not only disrespectful to the people who went through it, but it's also, like I said, going against the fundamental right of the people. The teenagers nowadays are disconnected via the newspaper, and the only way of communication and the most effective way of getting through them is using visualization, and communicating the horrors of the society is through movies and shows. The fact that sexually explicit content is banned is just ridiculous, because not only is sexual content available anywhere if you just search up on the net, but in fact movies actually do censor most of them when it comes on television. I would just like to conclude by saying that films are a pavement for providing entertainment and education to the public. Such government intervention demeans the industry and dispirits the nation as a whole. Thank you.
I mean, this is a battle that has been going on forever. Whether the censor board, it's a very, very important subject, whether the censor board should exist at all or not. Yes. Against the motion?
The Cinematograph Act of 1952 empowers the Central Board of Film Certification, or the CBFC, to ask for parts of a movie to be removed before showcasing it in public if it is found to be, the proposition may pay attention, against the interests of sovereignty and integrity of India, security of the state, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency or morality, or is likely to incite the commission of any offence. Would the House want to intentionally compromise on any of these facets of national importance? I certainly think not. Further, let me clarify that this empowerment of the CBFC to ask for censorship in movies has been legally challenged in the past and has gotten the approval of the Honorable Supreme Court in a trial involving a documentary, The Tale of Four Cities by K.A. Abbas. Having laid out the facts, I will now proceed to deal with the social cons of this motion over the next 3 odd minutes. My first question, age labels. What age label could one put up to warn people against content that is disturbing or offensive to a particular adult section of society? Just not possible, right? And even if we do put up a warning, how effective can it really be? For example, though the dangers of smoking and drinking are flashed as warnings during such scenes in movies, they haven't deterred people from falling prey to these vices as an effect of their glorification. Second, mankind has continuously evolved to exist in harmony. Cinema, which plays a vital role in circulating ideas, has the power to influence our thoughts and can mold the morality and habits of the public. The way certain branding in movies, like usage of Apple devices, has led people to believe them to be status symbols, abundant inappropriate content like extreme violence and hatred might lead the society to adopt it as a norm. Thus, unrestricted access to inappropriate content in cinemas may lead us on a regressive journey back to the Stone Age. Is that what we really want? We all know that in a recent incident, Kashmiri students who raised pro-Pakistan and anti-Indian slogans were booked under the UAPA, or the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Won't it be futile to prosecute a filmmaker for such inappropriate content in movies after the entire country has viewed it? Or should we be curtailing it prior to release? That is my third and final question. Let us not confuse the freedom of press with that of speech and expression. While the press can only report facts and can be prosecuted for false information, creative media enjoys the liberty of imagination and hence certainly requires to be regulated. Freedom of speech and expression is important, but it is mandatory to restrict the freedom of one individual so as not to hamper with that of the society as a whole. Efforts to relax these restrictions could prove devastating. A figment of the repercussions of such unregulated and uncensored cinema can be seen in the form of a plethora of offensive OTT content available these days. To conclude, in a perfect world, censorship might not be necessary. Children wouldn't be exposed to movies inappropriate for their age, and every person would have the maturity to clearly recognize the boundary between movies and reality. But we don't live in a perfect world. We can't control what our children watch or predict what could inspire violent behavior. But we can take steps to protect the unguarded things in society through classification and censorship. Hence, the current provision of CBFC to demand and undertake censorship is a necessary tool to ensure a progressive, safe and secure nation and should not be tinkered with. Thank you.
Oh my God. I am not going to pass any flippant remark right now. I'm too tense. Yes, you can ask your question.
You mentioned your first point, which was movies should not affect the sovereignty of a country. Well, I have an example. Let's say Padmavati. It was banned because it was claiming that the film shed the queen in a bad light, while the intentions were not to showcase how they glorify the queen, but rather to showcase history and transfer truths to people. And while I am talking about how these so-called films which hurt sentiments, there are trigger warnings, and you can't exactly as for your fact, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling, but there is the fact where you spoke about how the child is being child watching films that not supposed to watch. Viewer discretion is always there, and yes, you said that you did say that we cannot. So here's the thing: we can't control every single child, and that is why there is always warnings. My question is, how would you do you think every single film that hurts people's sentiments should be banned? And what about movies like Simba, where it glorifies mob violence and whatnot? They're over there because it is glorifying the police, but rather it's just showing and supporting mob violence instead.
So, of course, we always give viewer discretion for movies which are not appropriate for a particular age group or people from a particular background. But I think what the debate stated was that we are not looking to ban the entire movie, but to censor parts of the movie that are not appropriate, particular parts or sections of a movie which are not appropriate for someone. And I think that is the only solution to the problem which arises when we say, how do we ensure that viewer discretion is followed? You can of course give warnings, but how do you know that people are going to follow these warnings? So I think this is the only solution we have as to make sure that only appropriate viewers are able to see the film. And just to make it clear again, I'm not looking to ban the entire movie, but to censor only the parts which are not appropriate for a particular group of people.
So you did say that banning certain parts, but don't you think a young impressionable child would want to know, like, oh, there's a part of the film that's banned, let me quickly go search it up? And that's how pirated websites are formed, and that's why they're doing so well, is because they're censoring certain parts of the movies. If you go search up deleted scene of so and so, you will definitely get it, and it's high in demand. So don't you think that's just increasing the problem of piracy in movies?
Okay, so it's what I would like to say is we have to solve problems one step at a time. The current problem is ensuring that in the available legal platforms, viewer discretion is ensured. After this comes the step of using modern day technology to ensure that all these pirated sites are not accessible at all and that they are shut down. So that is the next step in the process to ensuring that all the censored parts are not available anywhere on the internet. We all understand that the content in social media nowadays is not completely regulated by the government, like you said, but with companies like Facebook, now Meta, having been alleged of influencing election results and violating privacy norms, a need is felt to control the same. If content generated by unorganized amateur producers could have such a negative effect, what do you think would be the extent of effect that inappropriate, unregulated, organized and professional cinematic productions in circulation would have on the society?
I just want to clarify something in your question. What type of movies are you talking about? Like, produced movies are you talking about?
I'm talking about movies that would provide defamation to a particular group, say the government or a government organization. So instead of talking about an entire organization and defaming the organization using false claims, so I'm talking about that.
I think a lot of people, instead of blindly believing about what the movie is saying, they would rather go research, because I know for a fact that not a lot of people will just go, oh, this person's saying this, okay, let me just go vote for this person, because movies, like I said, are a form of entertainment, not a news outlet.
My follow-up question, in your answer you seem to be talking only about the educated populace, whereas it is very evident that in a country like India, there are people above 18 who are uneducated, who are from rural backgrounds, who don't have the maturity to make their decisions correctly. I mean, we could go on into another debate of how the election age, voting age depends on age rather than maturity. But coming back to this topic, how do you think, what do you think about the people who don't have the maturity to make their decisions and be sure about their decisions? What effect would such movies have on them?
I feel like India in itself has a herd mentality, especially with the uneducated population. So if a lot of people say, I am going for this person, it's a herd mentality, and a lot of people vote for this person, like a particular A, like let's say A. So with that herd mentality, I feel like if the educated population already, because it's hard to convince them of, it's hard to shake their foundation. And so if there are enough educated people striving for A, there will be enough uneducated people with the herd mentality following a. Get what I'm saying?
I hand it over to the judges to take over at this point.
So the first question, continuing on with our semi-finals trend, is to side opposition. And Kaamya, the question is, who decides what decency and public order are? So these are terms that change by the generation that we're in. So 5 years ago, having a movie where two men are holding hands might be considered against public decency. 20 years ago, having people of any gender share a kiss on screen might be considered against public decency. Public order is a term which is liable to be used by ruling governments to decide that things that don't support them can't be shown in films. So given the amount of vagueness that exists, and given the importance of film in pushing boundaries, educating us, and entertaining us, isn't it important for us to be very, very careful when using terms like these to try and ban and censor free expression?
So the CBFC which I referred to, in my model it should have people from different walks of life, different fields, who are practicing professions which are related to either the entertainment industry or to the judiciary in some way, so that people from all these different backgrounds can keep in track with what is okay and what is not okay in the current times, like you mentioned. I think because the CBFC works on a case-to-case basis. It depends. Each movie has a different part of it which should be censored. So I think it would really help to have people from different professions which are related to what should be seen on the screen, so that these people can voice their opinions on whether a particular activity which is shown in a movie is appropriate or not appropriate for the general public.
Sure, but the deeper question there, Kaamya, is the role of film should be to push societal standards and the way that we think and challenge existing power and authority within society. It seems like no matter who is in this group, at the end of the day, they will reinforce what we currently believe and the stereotypes that we hold. For example, the idea that we should not have any romance on screen, or we should not have LGBT representation on screen.
Right. Like I said before, the trend or the vogue nowadays is changing at a very fast pace, and I'm sorry I forgot to include it in the previous answers, but we could have influencers, people who connect with the general public also as part of this board, so that they have a say in what people look for in a cinema, what different people with different mindsets look forward to see in a movie, what kind of representation they want, what kind of stories they want. So I think with that broader perspective, when we find that something is unwanted for everybody or for a really large group of people, then it should be censored.
Thank you.
My question, Leisha, is to you. There is a right to free speech and expression, but there is also a right to live with dignity, and there is a right to live without discrimination that is accorded to, particularly, I think, marginalized communities. So in the event that your right to free speech through a film that is incredibly offensive to marginalized communities is hurting their right to live with dignity, which one of those rights should win out? How do we decide that? And would it not therefore be the right thing to do before the damage is done to the reputation and perception of a marginalized community, to ask films to either change that representation or pull the movie?
Nowadays, a lot of the movies, because of how how such situations are coming to light, because of the usage of the internet, a lot of people are now starting to talk about problematic movies or problematic plot lines. And I feel while we shouldn't exactly ban such movies, I feel like there are more people speaking about against the movie rather than just outright banning it, so that when when you see this movie's problematic and why it's problematic, they be like, okay, so this particular minority is not exactly whatever stereotype is there in their mind. Also, was there a second part to your question?
No, that answered the question. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, and we have the result over here. Tiska is smiling away, so we don't know what is happening.
This
Yeah.
is a massively big debate that rages on all film sets at all points in time. You just need to pick this topic up and boom, this thing is
Explosions
bursting,
happen.
there's exploding everywhere. I think both of them presented their propositions and the opposition really well. However, in the interest of carrying the movement of the game forward, we should announce one person. So the person who moves on to the finals is Kaamya, Karthikeyan, and Leisha. Very well done. Better luck next time. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Congratulations, Kaamya, for entering the grand final.
Thank you.
I think both of you all debated really well. So while we head towards the final debate, I think these two contestants, it's time to now cross the floor and shake your hands. Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. And I hope now that you guys are all geared up for the absolute grand finale of these debates coming up.